Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to our February Probus Club meeting. Do we have any visitors? I've got one that I'm going to mention, but perhaps if I mention her first. Cynthia Balosh, have I pronounced it correctly,
Belloc.
Cynthia?
Belloc.
Belloc?
Belloc.
Yeah. Cynthia,
You're close.
you're very welcome. Thank you for coming along. Cynthia has heard about our club, is interested in our club, and may be interested in joining our club. So she's very welcome, and hopefully she might follow through and become a member. Any other visitors? Yes. Margaret Doherty, the mother of our guest speaker. She's very welcome. And of course, the wife of our esteemed member, Michael. Any other visitors? Michael?
Oh, that's all right.
Are there any special days, birthdays, anniversaries, things like that?
We had a 63rd anniversary yesterday, David.
Well done, Joe. Well done. Well done.
Bill Lowry, 89 yesterday.
Bill Lowry, 89 yesterday.
Wow.
Any others?
Joe, 88 the day before.
Gosh. No others? Okay. I just thought I found a couple of Churchill famous comments which are always worth repeating, I think. I like this first one. The Sermon on the Mount was the last word in ethics. Churchill, 1952. Churchill again in 1959 in an election campaign speech. Among our socialist opponents, there is great confusion. Some of them regard private enterprise as a tiger to be shot. Others look on it as a cow they can milk. Only a handful see it what it really is. The strong and willing horse that pulls the whole cart along. And then a quote from Maggie Thatcher. The trouble with socialism is that sooner or later they run out of someone else's money. Maybe appropriate in terms of how we're going with the budget, etc., etc. I don't know, did anyone watch Bad Bunny yesterday? Oh, there we are. The Super Bowl in America was played yesterday morning between the Seattle Seahawks and the Patriots, New England Patriots. Played in Los Angeles, and the feature of the Super Bowl is the halftime entertainment, which costs about $20 million. And this was provided by Apple, who could afford it. And they had this Puerto Rican entertainer by the name of Bad Bunny. I mean, you've never seen anything like it. It's an unbelievable performance. Lady Gaga also got involved. I quite liked Lady Gaga, she was good. But it was extraordinary. They set up almost like a jungle on the oval for the purposes of the entertainment. All this has to be done in about 10 minutes. And it was extraordinary. Yeah, haven't seen anything like it. But anyway, we've got an NFL match here in September at the MCG between the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. But I don't think we'll be able to get a ticket. because the demand is going to be extraordinary. Okay, I think we're pretty well. Oh no, what we want to do is our esteemed Vice President, who's especially flown back from Darwin for the occasion, might call through the roll.
Hopefully I'll get through it, Dave.
Yeah. Don't go to sleep while you're
Go
doing
to
it.
sleep. Okay, thank you. Dr. Peter Bedford.
Here.
Bert the Berryman.
Yes.
Bruce Bazant.
Yes.
Ted Breer.
Yes.
Michael Doherty.
Yes.
Len Edwards.
That would be an apology.
Apology. Robert Urbacher.
Yeah.
Alan Evans. Brian Fitt.
Apology.
Thank you. Frank Henning.
Here.
Dr. Bob Hill.
Apology.
Declan Hinks.
Yes.
Reg Jackson.
Yeah.
David Jones is here, along with his wife Jackie. Well, Jackie, you were here. Where are we going? You were still here? Dr. Joe Lansbury.
Yes.
Guy Lansbury.
Yes.
Peter J. McCartney.
Yeah.
Brian McMahon.
Apology.
Thank you. Dr. John Metcalf.
Yep.
Gary the Papworth.
Yes. Here.
Dr. Graham Ratton,
He's an apology.
as well as Bev Ratton.
Yes.
Laurie Rose.
He's an apology too.
Kevin Ryan.
Yeah.
Will Semler. David Taylor.
Yeah.
Les Serling.
Apology.
Keith Tupper.
Present.
Dr. Olivia Turacek.
Apologies.
And that completes the list, Mr. President. Unless I've missed somebody. If I have, I'm sorry.
I think that's very good, Mr. Vice President. Thank you. Done with your magisterial voice. Very good.
Not for much longer.
Very good. Okay. Now, Graham Ratton's an apology because he and Bev had to attend a funeral, so we won't have an Arminer's report. Kev, is there anything you want to report? There's a financial statement went with the newsletter for the purposes of the annual general meeting. So obviously that's got the latest position.
Yes, it has. There's been no change since this time last month. Our bank account's $156. Just keeping it a bit above water at the moment.
Yep. Well, we got subscriptions coming up in a month or so, and at the annual meeting, general meeting, we'll deal with the amount of the subscription. So thanks for that, Kev. I don't think there's anything else to add in relation to excursions at the moment. There's a couple that are sort of kept on the back burner, like Ripon Lee and the possibility of a trip to Creswick to the Woolen Mills, and also the one to, is it Williamstown? To the
Williamstown,
yeah, to the museum at Williamstown. So they're sort of both on the list as possible follow-ups depending on the amount of interest. Okay, we're going to move to Members' Corner, and can I say very grateful to John Metcalf to be prepared to do a Members' Corner for us. John is a very long-standing and distinguished member of this club, was president for many years, has spoken to the club on numerous occasions, particularly in relation to his profession as an engineer with particular interest in roads. We'd love to have him at the helm of trying to fix our roads at the moment, which are just getting worse and worse. And he did tell us about that on one occasion. But I don't think John's going to talk about roads today. He's going to talk about his travels. And he and Pat do a lot of travelling, and sometimes it works out and sometimes there are problems. So John, no doubt, will tell us about the things that went well and the things that maybe were a bit of a challenge. So would you all like to make John Metcalf welcome for a members' corner?
To do this, I thought I'll talk about a few of the problems I've had recently. And I set off and got something organised, and then I thought, well, this sounds terrible, you know, it sounds as though I'm a sort of a human disaster if you travel. So I looked back, and I looked back at my records, and just because the nature of the job I was doing, I found in the 20 years from 1970 to 1990, I made 45 international trips either to America or Europe. And the only problem I can remember out of all those trips was when I got sent to Gabon in West Africa. And when I was told I was going there, I said, don't like the sound of that. How about you fly me in and out that leg, first class, London to Gabon and back to London? And much to my surprise, the board agreed. So I got on the jumbo, and in those days the story was there was only one jumbo jet flying in Africa. They used to repaint it every night for a different airline and called it the Mumbo Jumbo. But I got on this and took off, and about halfway to the Safari, and the hostess came round. She was about 6'6", and leaned over me and said, "Would you like a drink?" I said, "I'd like a gin and tonic." She gave me a 7-ounce glass of gin and a bottle of tonic and a bottle of soda, which lasted me all the way to Gabon, I might say. But that was the only real problem I had when I was travelling officially, so to speak. Coming more locally, though, to more recent travels, 2 years ago now, we went to America. We took a cruise across to Vancouver and down the coast. It was a great cruise. I spent a whole 5 days flat on my back in the bed watching the storm waves go past outside, because I managed to pick flu. You can still hear me at the back? Not quite.
Just too well. Up a little bit more, John.
A bit more?
Yeah.
Like get rid of the microphone and shout at you, it'd probably be easy. But anyway, I spent 5 days flat on my back, no problem. Then went to the Kimberleys. I left Melbourne in as fit as a flea, flew to Bunbury, woke up the next morning feeling terrible and was diagnosed with COVID. Went down to the cruise and said, "I've got COVID." And they said, "Oh, well, you can come on board as long as you stay away from everybody else." So I sat in sort of one corner of the dining room and everything for the week. That was a bit of a disaster. But just to top off those adventures, Pat and I had decided we'd cruise the Danube and then the Mediterranean 2 years ago now. The idea was to go down the Danube, come back through Vienna and Florence to Rome, and then catch up the trip around the Mediterranean. So, we enjoyed it, apart from getting back to Vienna from after going down the Danube, to get the worst storm for 150 years, which closed the railway station completely for 2 solid days, which were the 2 days we were supposed to be travelling by train to Rome. So we sat there in the pouring rain and didn't enjoy ourselves too much. But we survived that. But having joined the ship, I managed to develop a swollen leg for some reason or other, which the doctor took one look at and said, "You need x-rays." So I went to Rhodes, a beautiful island, according to Pat. She thinks it's a wonderful little place, where I spent the whole day getting x-rayed. Then I got given a list of pills, and I thought, well, they maybe won't have these on the ship. I better get them before I get back on the ship. So I went to the chemist and got the ambulance to stop and take me to the chemist, filled myself up with about 4 different lots of pills, took them back on board, went to see the doctor and said, I've had the x-ray, was it okay, and so on, and I've got these pills. She took one of the pills and tossed the whole lot, said they were either outdated or useless anyway, so threw the whole lot away. So that wasn't too good. But then my leg stayed swollen, and I thought, she's going to say, don't go to the pyramids, which was a bus ride. She said, oh no, you can go as long as you stay on the back seat with your leg horizontal for the whole trip. So I spent 3 hours sitting sideways on the bus with my leg up getting there and 5 hours getting back, in spite of having a police escort which had no effect on the traffic whatsoever. But we had a 5-hour bus trip. However, the last thing that happened was that the Tunisian government then decided that they weren't going to have any cruise ships into their major port for a few days and cancelled that part of the cruise. But we did get to Malta and it was nice. So we thought, oh, that's easy, it's all over. So we went to New Zealand then for a week or so, and Pat ended up being bumped from the return flight because she got flu and then pneumonia, and she came back here and spent a week in the hospital down the street. Anyway, don't let troubles like that dissuade you from travelling. Let me show you a few of the pictures that are relevant to our travels. First one was Canada, where the natives made us feel very welcome, and we showed us at their biggest mountain, which is so far in the distance you can barely see it. There's this sticky up bit at the back here, which is Mount Denali, 20,000 feet. We went on from there down to Las Vegas and through the Valley of Fire, where we found this quite nice looking gentleman. I think he's one of Trump's ancestors. And went on from there to Baton Rouge, where I'd spent 14 years at the university, the state capital of Louisiana, and that's from the top of the Capitol building, looking south towards New Orleans. The Kimberley cruise was the next one we did, and we saw the usual assortment of red rocks, crocodiles, next one, Bruce, and some more red rocks. Next one. And we rather like the Olgas rather in preference to Uluru, in fact. Then we did the Danube cruise, which was fairly straightforward. Flew to Vienna, took the train to where most of the monuments were covered up with scaffolding like that, which made them a bit difficult to photograph before the flood. And went on from there to Budapest and caught the ship from Budapest down the Danube, because I'd always wanted to see a thing called the Iron Gates. And to get there, whoops, this is after we'd gone through the Iron Gates. This is in Bucharest. I rather like the George and the Dragon, because I spent a bit of time working at a university in Romania at one stage. Bucharest is a charming city if you get the chance to go there. But the Iron Gates, I thought, would be some sort of medieval thing on the river, rather like that. Only to discover that in fact the Iron Gates is a stretch of the river which is about 130 kilometres long, and it has very severe tidal flows with a tidal bore coming up the river from the sea. And it's very difficult to navigate, or was very difficult to navigate, the bottom 130 kilometres, until about 1972, next one Bruce, when they actually put in 2 hydropower plants, including a lock so that the cruise ships could go up and down. So you get about 4 cruise ships at a time, next one Bruce, into the lock and sail out. It drops 35 metres from memory, from when you get into the cruise ship, they drop you down and post you out the other end. So we went through that. We then went back to Vienna and got stuck in a flood, onto Rome. And I took this picture because the brick wall there has got a plaque at the bottom of it commemorating the 2 architects who designed this supporting wall at the theatre there. I reckon the average brickie in Australia would knock it up in an afternoon without thinking twice about it, but you wouldn't have got a plaque on the wall. And then we went on to Ephesus, through Istanbul by day and night, which was very, very, very attractive. bit blurred that one. And on to Ephesus, en route through Athens. Well, that, unless you're prepared to book 3 or 4 months in advance, that's the closest you can get to the Parthenon. It's just booked out for tourism, solid, up to 3-4 months ahead. Next one, Bruce. Ephesus in Turkey is I think, quite a charming ruined city. The first time I went there, I was on a bus with a bunch of international people, including a very boisterous American, who said, what this place needs is Disney. And at the time I thought, that's a stupid sort of a thing to say. But having been back, I realised what he was saying. When we went there the first time, there were no signs, there was no entry procedure, the paths were as rough as ducks, there were no public toilets, there were no restrooms, there were no cafe or anything like that. Now it's been turned into a proper sort of tourist thing, and you can see some of the old signs are still there, but they've got newer signs up, they've cleaned up the footpath so you can actually walk through it without putting your life at risk. And it's quite a charming spot. We went on to, we went to the pyramids, of course, to see those big heaps of rock, which are still there. I don't know whether they've ever done anything of any note, apart from stay. There's a big heap of rock in the middle of the jungle, make good aggregate for building roads, actually. Next one. And on to a variety of small Greek islands. I rather like this place because this is a fort, the castle, for the village, and you can see it compared to the size of the ship in the background. It's not too big a fort. We just went through a couple more. We saw Hippocrates statue and another small village, and on to Santorini, which I think is the next one. Oh no, that was Hippocrates. Next one is Santorini. You might be able to make it out here, but there's actually a cable car runs from here all the way up there to there. The alternative is 900 steps. We went up there, Pat didn't enjoy that too much on the way up. I think she shuts her eyes most of the way. And interestingly, they had an earthquake shortly after we left, and it shook a fair bit of it up. And then the last effort was the New Zealand one, where we started in the South Island with the fjords, which were really magnificent. If you ever get the chance, it really is a splendid trip through the fjords. And of course, if you're at all serious with any engineering background, you've got to go for the railway station in Dunedin, which is a Victorian monstrosity. It's got stained glass windows with trains on the stained glass, and it's got tile floors with trains on the tile floors. So it's picturesque, to say the least. And that was that, apart from, of course, Pat coming home with pneumonia and flu. Thank you. Oh, I forgot the last one. I've heard it said that New Zealanders don't know which way's up, but I think that's wrong. They actually don't know which way's backwards and which way's forwards.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Well done.
Thanks, John, very much for. I'm sure, Pat, it wasn't all as bad as he made out to be, right? There were still plenty of good things that happened. The important thing is that you kept going and got the maximum enjoyment out of it. We're now going to get organised for our guest speaker, who is John Doherty, and John is Michael and Margaret's son. I think one of the features of Progress is that we do from time to time hear from people about their journey in life, the sort of things they've done and what they're interested in, and that's an important part of Progress, that we get that opportunity to hear from others about how their life has worked out. I know John has a particular interest in cars, motor vehicles, racing vehicles, so I'm sure he's going to tell us about that. So just take a brief moment whilst we get him set up, and then we'll hear from John Doherty.
I've just got a whole bunch of notes I wrote down for this, so I'm going to have to read it and some of them I'll elaborate on. And then at the end, I threw together some random photos out of all my photo boxes and phone, and I just thought, well, we can just chat about those and ask questions after I do a blurb, because it's nice to be interactive, and I'm sure everyone's got different interests. So yeah, and firstly, thank you for asking Dr. Jones for me to come here. I still feel a bit weird that I'm actually here, but nonetheless, I'm here. So I've written out this story, and I just was going to start with a little bit, just a brief about myself. Is I've learned in life that I've done a lot of different things, and I've learned in life essentially that at the end, we're all different stuff, and some people are maintainers, and some people do different things. I always say I'm a creator. I just like to create. I like to make, and whether that's making a business or making a table or making a shirt or drawing something, that's what gets me out of bed every morning to keep going. So I was born in Melbourne, Australia, just around the corner, in good old Panch. On the 5th of September 1966. I'm number 2, as I often say to Mum, of 5 children. Paul is the oldest, then followed by Anthony, Daniel and Claire, or after me. We were all infected by the car disease by our car-loving father, who was always like machinery of all kinds, and has owned everything from Chamberlain tractor to Albion trucks to a BMW. And I need to update this, but yeah, even at 88 he still gets around in his MGB, which you all know. And Dad, as you know, is a plumber by trade, so was my brother Paul, and my other brother Anthony was an electrician by trade, my younger brother Daniel was a telecom technician by trade, and my sister did behavioural science, probably to study us all in the end. And then, of course, she married a builder. So there's a lot of trades in our family. And my brother Daniel's gone on to do all sorts of different things now. And now he's a yoga teacher in Coolum, amongst other things. Mum and Dad, obviously, as a lot of you know, they ran their own business for a long time. And as we were growing up, we often heard different stories of, of Mum's time when she went overseas for, was it 12 months? Yep, into the UK, which really sort of set a foundation. Having a mother that travelled back in that day was very unusual, and I think there was a newspaper clipping of her and going over there, and it was like, it sort of inspired me and to travel when I got older. So thanks, Mum, for that. And we always loved telling the story how she worked for Sterling Moss when we were into our cars, so it was a nice talking point. Through my school years, I excelled at everything, probably not scholastically, but anything creative to live. We lived out in Bundoora, and then Mum and Dad moved up to research. When we were on research, my mates at school would bag me in, because back in then it was the bush, basically, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're going home." My nickname was Docker as well, and you're going home tonight, Docker, to pedal the generator, because all my friends lived in Preston, and going to Parade Bundoora was a bit of a joke. So it was always funny. I was very lucky when we moved to research. I ended up owning a horse. So I did a lot of trips with my horse and had a lot of good times with that. And I often tell the story about when, in comparison to today's, I don't know what, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but the cotton wool generation. And I came off my horse going up Allendale Road and got my leg caught in the stirrup. I was on my own. And it was a full, canter or gallop, and I'm fanging up this road on my horse because it's turned its head to head home. and it used to shy at anything. And we're at Allendale Road at the time was that conglomerate rock, that sort of, rough, clay sort of full of little stones. Anyway, so full on, the horse just steps to the right, then it leaves me just in midair. So I land on my back and this stirrups stuck in the saddle, and it's got safety stirrups, but that bastard of a thing wouldn't come out. So then I'm bouncing along behind the horse and the hoofs are going like this in my face. I can still picture it now, and I'm just going like this, praying to God that I don't get hit. And then all of a sudden the safety stirrup releases about, I don't know, probably 10 metres up the road. Horse just keeps going, and I come to a grinding halt. I had a t-shirt on, and I got up, I filled my back, and I don't know if everyone can remember that show Roots that was on years ago. It was a American documentary, and had the character Kunta Kinte. You got whipped. I said, oh God, I felt like Kunta Kinte. I got up back, and it was all blooded, and I stood up, and there's no one around. So now you probably get airlifted out of there. But I had to walk up, get my horse, then walk the next 2 kilometres, and then the horse kept running away, so then I had to walk the next 2 kilometres home. And I still can't remember what happened when I got home, but I'll paraphrase it. I probably walked in and Mum would have said something like, oh, what have you done to your shirt? You've ruined another shirt. There would have been it's a different era. And I'm so thankful for being able to grow up and be able to do that, because it taught you to just, strap your boots back on and get back into it. We'll go back to a bit of reading here. I love to draw and design anything and bring it to life by making it. I have two brothers close in age, and we always had each other to keep company. We started out by borrowing our dad's plumbing tools like the oxyacetylene and arc welder to chop up our push bikes, and made sidecars and chopper bikes. We then added bits to them to make them jump better. We could all weld by the time we were 10. It just seemed normal to us, which was weird. Dad would be off and we'd be stealing his oxyacetylene from out in the garage and doing something with it. Similarly, we would go to work with Dad in school holidays and be on the end of a pneumatic drill boring holes in rock so he could blast a trench. And we all knew how to drive a backhoe, put dynamite in a hole and blast before we reached high school, which is true. And Dad would have been there as he's as you know, he's a very gentle man, and he would have been, what are you doing, you idiot? Put that thing in there. So we'd be getting in and getting it done. So it was good. It was a good education. At school, my favourite subjects were metalwork, woodwork, standard things. I like all the sports, football, cricket, everything, but I definitely gravitated to creativity. I ended up in school to year 12, had aspirations to become an architect, didn't work out, and then ended up getting an apprenticeship as an auto electrician in Greensboro, which I did for 3 years. The guy was an absolute arsehole to work for, and then I ended up getting a job at Landmark Tours in Diamond Creek at a bus company, and got the yin and the yang. Worked for a beautiful family business and really taught me the values. And when I started my own business, I knew which values to follow, not the values of the first one. I just talks a lot about. I've spoken a lot about cars because cars are a passion that's just pulled me through my life. So I've done up a lot of different cars along the way. And Dad often would be down there in the shed helping me or pointing out things, what to do and what not to do. I famously drove my HR Holden out of the garage with my brother Paul, and he said, have you checked the wheel nuts? I said, yeah, I've checked the wheel nuts. I've checked them 20 times. And we drove up Allendale Road, and next thing you know, the wheel goes flying off. He just looked at me. He didn't say anything. And I was probably 16. I was probably 17. He was 18. So during my apprenticeship, I just kept working and saving money, and had a long-term goal of travelling overseas. It was a great apprenticeship. I had all sorts of different cars through it. and being what we would now call a hoon. Blew up plenty of differentials and gearboxes and things like that out with my mates on the weekends. And I had I don't know, 5-6 cars, paddock bombs, rally cars, all sorts of different things all the way through. And a lot of my friendship time was spent with my mates working on cars. We didn't go to many festivals or anything like that. We weren't going to the pubs. We were working on our cars. I had a speedboat as well. All sorts of everything was very motor focused. I even had a fiberglass beach buggy as well, a VC Valiant, all sorts of different things. In 1989, I chose to travel. I wanted to go on a 12-month trip, follow what my mum did and a few of my mates had done. So I travelled overseas. It was interesting to see some of the photos and think of my travels while you had them up there. And I went to the US. Went to Japan for a week, then got to the US and travelled the US for 2 or 3 months with 2 mates. And my 2 good mates that I travelled with then are my two good mates that I see probably on a weekly basis now. It's bizarre. And that trip really formed my life. It really taught me a lot of values. I left there growing up in Bundoora. You become a lot of Italian and Greek, and it's like, the bloody wogs next door, or this or that, and you don't have an appreciation of their what they've done to come to this country. I never did anyway. And then going overseas, I travelling through Europe and different places, or even in Canada, I was now the wog, and it really affected me. And I was like, gee, I felt embarrassed of what I'd done as a young adult. And so when I came back, I treated immigrants in a totally different fashion. It should be mandatory for everyone to have to go and do it, because you just don't realise till you do it. But yeah, we travelled all the way up to like Alaska, where I think you'd said you'd been. So up to a place called Dawson City. We got stuck there, and as the winter was closing in, which was really good times. And then, I drove a car for probably about 4,000 kilometres on the wrong side of the road over there. I drove down from Whistler, where I worked for a while on a construction site, and drove back down to Memphis, where we've got what I call de facto relatives, and drove. It was minus 30 while I was driving, and I always remember the conditions. Conditions are good going through Colorado, a big sign on the thing. Conditions good on 3 foot of hard packed snow. And cars are going past me at 100 kilometres an hour. I'm driving like a 30, thinking, what can I do here? This is crazy. And boom, so I learned how to drive faster on the snow. So great experiences, but yeah, driving to minus 30, the heater doesn't work, especially when you've got an old car. So I was driving on a sleeping bag around me. It was different to Australia. What else? When I got back, I've just written this down here now. I got back, now it was time to get my life in order. I was 23, didn't have a cent to my name. My older brother Paul was already married and had a wife and just had twins. And he's 18 months older than me. I felt like I was so far behind in life. It was crazy. Which is obviously, again, very different to now. I landed a job straight away and helped Dad out when I could. Within 6 months, I found myself purchasing a lathe and starting a business and becoming a mobile auto electrician. Something I didn't plan on doing at that stage in my life. I thought that happened 4 or 5 years later, but away it went. I could go on forever about that, but I worked there for nearly 20 years as an auto electrician in Briar Hill, which is some of the best years of my life. Some of the most challenging too, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was the representative for the Auto Electrical Association. We were talking about that earlier, about the difficulties of having a treasurer and a secretary in that. So I learnt all those roles. I became a member of the VACC, all these different things. My business grew, and and it was great. I really enjoyed it. And it's now, I sold it to my apprentice, and he's got it and it's thriving. It's going really well, which is such a really nice thing to see. I met my wife Jenny in '93, and we married in '95. Jen's from Shep, so that was a different thing. So I was going back to Shepparton all the time and meeting a lot of country lads up there, so it was really good. We just didn't meet online because there was no online. Just met at a pub and hit it off, and she's got a great circle of friends, and so do I, and everyone, we all mix really well together. It's been excellent. It's been an amazing journey. 3 children later, Rory, me and Darcy, and we lived in Thornbury for 28 years and then moved to Northcote. Jen worked for Australian Customs the whole time, all the way through, having kids. She worked part-time and so we could get by. Then I had a big shift. I got to about 38 or whatever. I was really floundering in my business and wanted something more. So I kept on trying all these different things. I bought some what we call variable message signs, the ones on the sides of the road, and had that as a side business while I had my auto electrical business. I had another little GPS tracking business on the side as well. And it was, so basically I had 3 businesses in one. I was just running, dropping signs off on the weekend, at night. Probably wasn't the best dad in the world because I just wasn't around enough, but I was just trying to feed my family and get ahead in life. And then along that way, I wanted to add alcohol interlocks as a part to my business or our business, and I couldn't do it. And so the 2 supplying companies wouldn't allow me to enter the market. So as just an agent in my shop in Montmorency, or Briar Hill. So I tried and I tried and I tried, and I spent 2-3 years trying. They just kept knocking me back. So I found another company in the US after trying for probably another 18 months with 3 or 4 different companies in the US to bring their product over. I met with the responsible people at Vic Roads, and eventually, it's a long story, could go on for an hour, but eventually got the product certified, convinced the company in the US to bring their product here, signed a franchise agreement with them. We were their first international franchise, and they took a gamble with it, me and the original owner, Lamar, who was an amazing man, and unfortunately he's passed away now, but really, really beautiful man. And he took a risk on me, and away we went. And anyway, 15 years later, ran that business, grew up from nothing to 25 employees. We had another factory. We had 140 sites across Australia in the end. So it grew massively. And then the franchisor came calling and said, we love your business. We can see it's profitable. We want it. And so 2 years of negotiations, and a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago now, they purchased our business and we sold out. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I'd be without a job and financially stable at age 57, but that's what happens. And so now it leaves me in a position of what to do. So, but along that journey, I was talking to the other John Doherty here today. I got to do a lot of different things, and I had to, during my working life, I knew education was the key to success. So I finished my auto electrical apprenticeship. I went and did a couple of short courses after that. Then I enrolled myself for 5 years at night school, 2 nights a week, doing computer electronics. And so then after that, I did another couple of business courses with the VACC and another place called VASA, just to help my business grow. And then once I started doing SmartStart, I did another couple of short courses in business management, and realised I was missing a lot when I was going to a lot of these government meetings. It was almost like they were talking Mandarin. I didn't understand a lot of the stuff they were talking about. And I knew, although I had a lot of skills, I had a lot of drive, I knew I could do it, but I wasn't saying the right things. So I enrolled myself to do an MBA, And so over the next 2 years, I completed a Masters in Business Administration to give myself the sufficient skills to run that business properly, and which was a game changer for me, and it made me grow the business. So it doesn't all happen on its own, which I'm sure everyone here understands that thoroughly. And then when you get to the end, as I'm sure everyone understands, people go, "Gee, you must be lucky. God, that all worked out for you." But it works out with a lot of work. I missed one part here actually, which I can't believe I missed it. Towards the end of my 30s, as I was talking about earlier, I was going through that time where I had these different businesses and I needed a change in life. I was struggling emotionally, everything. If I look back on it now, I probably should have went and saw someone to help me. But I went out and I'd always wanted to be a pilot, and right from when I was young. So I went and did my pilot's license. I was going to do fixed wing, but I did a lot of research on the subject, and I always wanted to do rotary wing, which is helicopter. So I went and got my commercial helicopter pilot's license. So that took 2 to 3 years, but that taught me a lot of skills also. There's a law component of that, which really helped me in my negotiations. At the same time, just after I finished my license, I was negotiating to do the franchise agreement with SmartStart, which some of the skills I took off that took me through there. And I had planned on changing totally and going down the pilot course, but the opportunities with SmartStart to help feed my family properly were too much to pass up. So I continued. I've obviously got no regrets, but it would have been nice. So what next? At the end of all that, a few years ago, I just thought I still need a challenge. So I purchased an industrial property, or my wife and I, in Alphington, and I'm slowly restoring it, so to speak. And I've stuffed a few cars in there, and I'm just going to knock off those projects one at a time. So, I guess this probably just leads. I keep reading on forever and ever, but I think it's a lot of stuff that's when I look back on it, it's. A lot of car stuff that's too detailed that people don't really need to know. I'll just want to talk through some of these photos. I just threw a bunch of photos together quickly, just help to grab my attention to talk about. So what it was probably, how long ago, Dad? 7 years ago? 8 years ago? I was doing a job for SmartStart. I was in a place called Groot Island. Does anyone know where Groot Island is? Yep. So it's a mining island in the Gulf, and I was there sitting in the donga one night. We were fitting alcohol interlocks to some buses there, and it was quite a weird place because one half of it was a very depressing environment, and on the other half was a beautiful golf course and all this stuff there. So it was a bit weird. Anyway, I was having trouble with my youngest son, and everyone here, I assume most people are parents, and you go through different times in your parenting life, and he gave us some challenges. He's going great now, he's an awesome kid now, but he gave us some challenges, and I grabbed a book, and I can't remember the guy's, I do remember, I just don't know how to pronounce it, Steve Biddleoff or something like that. He's written a few books, and he's really, really good. Anyway, he said the importance of keeping connection with your whatever siblings you've got and your parents, and doing, especially with boys, it was all about a high focus on men and a relationship with their sons. And I thought, what the hell are we doing here? We've got this father and there's 4 boys in a family, and we never ever meet up. We don't do anything together. So I did more stuff than my son, but it really made me do stuff with my father. So we started doing these trips. So that was us going down to Torquay. My brother Paul's had a 63 Impala. He had it, that's a story in itself, but he's now sold that, but he had that for a good 40 years, and that was a Land Rover. I always wanted a Land Rover. I bought one for a year. Sorry, English people here, but you know, that was it. I got rid of that fantasy and moved that on quickly. So that's Daniel, Anthony, Dad, Paul, me. So if you can flick Bruce to the...
Not forward or back.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, yeah. So, sorry, we're all Collingwood supporters. We have no choice. So Mia, Rory, Darcy, and there's Luke in the middle. That's one of the neighbours. But she's now 25, 27, so it's quite an old photo. That was a good day. Yeah, unfortunately, when I loaded some of these photos, they appeared as movies. That's my 50th birthday present to myself. Right? I had some shares in through a buying group that I was a part of in the automotive business. They give you shares as you buy things, and it just grew and grew and grew. And I said, stuff this, I'm going to go and buy this car that I've always wanted. So I cashed in the shares and bought that. Financially, I should have kept the shares, but the car has given me far more joy than the shares ever would. And so for anyone who's interested, it's a 1966 Corvette Roadster. It's convertible, it's got a hard top as well, 327 small block Chev with a 4-speed Muncie, and the rest of it's standard. Nassau blue is the colour. That's what all the girls ask. Yeah, you can go back one. Oh. We'll go back? No? Oh, yeah, if you go that way. Sorry. Doesn't matter, I'll just go through them. So this is when we got to Japan on that first trip. So David, Peter, John. So we went, David goes, let's go skiing for a day. So I said, we're traveling on a budget, mate. We don't have money to go skiing. He still is, he just spends it, off he goes. So we caught the Shinkansen up to this, I don't even know what mountain that is in Japan, but that's 40 something years ago. This is a classic photo. I just threw these oddball photos in. This is David. We planted trees in Canada to earn extra money, and it's quite lucrative when you do it properly. And but the place we were working for they were bad people, and they were not paying their workers. And David worked it out, and he said, "Stuff this. We're out of here." So this is like second last day before we're leaving. And so this is David planting trees. So that's the bag of trees, and that's where they're going. I said, I've got to get a photo of this.
I think that's the top of the pile, and I have to go back.
Oh yeah, go back. It doesn't matter. They're in no order whatsoever. I just threw them all in. Yeah. So when we were we met these Canadian guys, and this is Cam and Dennis, and we've still kept in contact with them all this years longer. I've been on a holiday with Dennis. He came over and lived with us. Pete's kept in contact with Cam. Anyway, we took a stupid photo while we're planting trees. And that's the ute we had. We all had the same pack, and because I just love making signs, I just made a sign and shoved it on the back, and we would have drove at least 6,000 Ks in that thing all through North America. And lived in it, slept in it, did everything in it. In comparison to what young kids have now, they've got to have a solar panel, rooftop tent, inverter to make a coffee, induction cooking. It's out of control. We just got in the car and put our sleeping bags and off we went. That's the same group again. We did, when we had the Smart Start business, we did multiple exhibitions. I would have done 20 of them. So really taught me a lot about how to do a successful exhibition, but that was just one of them. Our business was called AGen Monitoring Systems, and that was our category, our leaders in offender monitoring. So we were talking to an electronic bracelet company, which unfortunately didn't work out, and also a UK drug testing company. Both of those didn't work out, not because of me, because of them, unfortunately. Anyway, and just quickly, I was looking for a name. I studied different names, and so my wife's name's Jen, and I stuck an A in front of it, and I made a logo, and got it professionally done. So there was no other agents out there. And it's a shame yeah, I can't believe it. I've accidentally saved them in the wrong format. That's depressing. It's really depressing. Wow. So I didn't mention this earlier, but this has been a big part of my life ever since I was a young man. I had a surf ski. I used to ride the waves on the short surf ski. And then when I came back from overseas, I always wanted to kayak, and I just never seemed to get the time to join a club or do it. And so I just sort of just sat in the background. And then eventually one of our friends through the school group, Jerry, an Irish guy we know, Jerry McConville, I was chatting to him. I said, I'd like to do the Murray Marathon. Do you want to do it with me? So it was 2010, I think it was. Yeah, so 2010 I did my first Murray Marathon. Does anyone know what the Murray Marathon is? Yeah. Yep. And so it's 415 kilometres of paddling down the Murray over 5 days, and absolute great event. They counted the last day when I first did it, and because of fire danger, so I never completed it. So I waited another 7 years, and then I went back with my support crew, my father, and he drove the car, and I went back and I did it on my own. This photo is from last year. Last year, where my friend Peter, who's in those snow pictures, and travelled overseas with me, we went back and did it together as a pair. I said to him, come on, let's go again. And so it's an absolutely great event. I can't believe that. I usually pride myself on my technical ability. I just haven't even looked at those. They're all photos. I just don't know how it. Well, this. Has anyone ever been to? I can't remember the name of it. Who here has a car interest, obsessive car interest similar to mine? No one? Yeah. This is in Italy, in a museum, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy's museum, but he was a person who makes a difference. He was a dairy farmer, and he had this massive, ginormous dairy farm, and he was finding out that Maserati were closing down their museum, and they were just going to auction off all the stuff, and it was about to go to Sotheby's or one of those big ones. It was just going to go everywhere, all around the world, like say 20 years ago. And he's gone, I can't let this happen. So he's gone there and negotiated with them, and he's bought the whole stock, which would have cost a gazillions. It'd be worth 20 times what he paid for it back then. And he built this, or it's a converted shed in his dairy farm. So you go into this stinking cow smell dairy farm in the back of Italy, and you come around a corner, and then you walk through the door, and there's two cars in here. It's a very famous Maserati called the Birdcage. There's two of them in there, and they're probably worth $3 million each. Just those two cars. So this was quite special I like my Maserati, so it's quite special to go there. Is that it? Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, there was another photo in here. When I started racing the Mini, I've told this story a few times, but the first event I ever did, so you can imagine how green I am. I've never raced a car before on a big track, and in a competitive nature. I'd done a couple of track days tuning it and getting it ready, and then I went to Phillip Island, which is the track of all tracks. It's just so magnificent to drive around. And I'm driving around the track, and I'm doing a thing called regularity, which is not, they say it's not racing, but tell the guys in regularity, they're all trying to pass each other. But you're meant to go around and set a regular time, and that's how you win your regularity. And I'm going around the track, and I'd seen two Ferraris in the garages earlier, and they were both what do you want to call recreation Ferraris. They had Ferrari engines in them, but they'd made all the motor and the body and that and made it themselves. So it was almost like a kit car, it wasn't genuine. And so I was following this other Ferrari, so I assumed the same thing. And I'm going right up its bum, and I'm trying to get in front of it, and I'm trying to dive and do this, do that. And this guy comes up to me afterwards, and I managed to get past him, and this guy comes up to me afterwards. He was driving a 356 Porsche across the road from where my garage was, and he goes, "Oh, John, is it?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, just come over here for a minute." I said, "Oh, yeah, how can I help you?" He goes, "I saw you driving really close to the 250 there." And I said, "Oh yeah, God, I was having a ball." He goes, "You might not want to get so close to it, mate. You just paid 25 million for it." And I've just gone, what? So it's amazing. And so then out of that, this guy, Richard, an English guy who lives in Eltham, found me and did a full article on my car, which is a shame because there's about 10 photos of that car in here. So, and put it in the UK Mini magazine, and which was pretty cool. It was a good article, and yeah, because he thought it was quite special that this had occurred. Yeah, well, I was going to talk about a few more of them, but that's my fault. So and the last thing I was going to talk about is since that, drawing that sign on the back of the car in the US, Canada, I've just kept drawing my whole time, right? I've made t-shirts and this, that and the other. And so amongst the cars I've got sitting, which are all up there, I've got an old Mazda sitting for the truck, sitting ready for renovation, an old Toyota Trip Carrier, and a Series 1 Land Rover, and my Corvette, obviously, and the Mini. And they're all just projects I'm just going to start marching through in my shed. Once my shed's done, get the shed done first, start marching through the projects. And it's going to be like a men's shed for my mates. It already is. They just drop in there all the time on the weekends, or I've got a plumber mate that's floating around during the day. You at Abbott, he says, yeah, comes over and has a chat. So it's been really good. So I also made this logo for my Troop Carrier. I stole the Coca-Cola emblem because I've always loved the Coca-Cola signature, and I just did a little change to it. And so he got the hat embroidered at Christmas time at an embroidery shop. So that I've got about 10 of these things now, and I'm just going to keep making more t-shirts and more stuff and keep busy and enjoy life. I've got a great family, and now I'm getting the chance to do all the things I never gave myself time to do because I worked I'd get to work at 7 and I wouldn't get home before 7 ever. That was my work. And now I'm starting to explore different things that a lot of other people were already doing. That's about it. Thank you. Thank you. Questions? I just heard the question. You had no idea what the business was. Is that what you said?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. I want questions. So, yeah. So, which the
You talked about your business and you talked about selling it, and you've had a very adventurous and fun life.
Yep.
And you give things a go.
Yep.
And I'm not quite sure what you do.
Yeah, so that's good. So I'm an auto electrician by trade. So an auto electrician is someone who specialises in the electrical section of a car.
Right.
So, traditionally batteries, alternators, starter motors, rewiring things, solar panels, all that sort of stuff, which I'm now finding doing for my kids' mates because they go, oh, Dad's an auto elec, he'll do that for you. So I still do that, but 20 years ago now, as part of being an auto electrician, there's people, would you believe it, that go to lunches like this and drink too much. And then they drive down the road and they get caught by the police. And the police say, you're going to lose your licence. They might appear before a magistrate. They used to, not anymore. Then the magistrate back in the day would then say, okay, as a condition of you being allowed to drive your vehicle on the road, you must have an alcohol interlock installed in that car. And the period might range from 6 months to 4 years. So then you would have to go to, like I said in that earlier, that we had ended up having contracts in every state of Australia.
Okay.
And so I was flying all over Australia, driving all over Australia. So I got to see a lot of Australia that I never would have saw before. And and as part of that business, they would have to come back every month. So you would go in, you would get your alcohol interlock installed. Before you go out of the car park here today, and you've had 4 gin and tonics, and you shouldn't have. And now your wife's gone because she left, and now you have to drive the car. You pull up your interlock and you blow into it, and you blow 0.03, well, you can't start your car. So and they had to come back every month to have them calibrated and serviced and download all the data, and the data was then collated and sent to the courts at the end of your period. And then it changed to an administrative system whereby the data was collected on a monthly basis and automatically monitored. And then once you got a certain amount of ticks, you got enough ticks to get off, stars they were, to get off the program. Then you applied for removal of the alcohol interlock. You would go back and see the auto electrician that was certified to do it, and they would remove the interlock for you.
Thank you. Now, I must say, that's good. I now see what you were on about. And I would say that I appreciated your talk because it reflects a guy who has had a go.
Yeah.
And you don't hesitate to give it a go.
No, I don't. I don't like the word no.
So you will have led and will continue to lead a full life.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm glad, John, you explained about the interlock because that's an interesting. That was an interesting area to get into.
It was, and for me, I could talk about the interlocks all day long. It was such a rewarding business to be a part of, and I was almost shattered when I sold it because I lost a big part of myself. You see a lot of the negative, and a lot of people would say, oh, who's the type of person that ends up with one of these interlocks in their car? And I'd be at a place like this, and I would say, these are the type of people. Because these are the type of people you see. You see everyone with an interlock in their car. There's doctors, judges, actors, apprentices. There's no one that escapes the interlock. And so we got to see people that reformed. You know, it's quite surprising. John, you would see a lot of the negative. I saw a lot of the negative, but also saw a hell of a lot of the positive. people would come in and thank us and say, well, I couldn't believe they were thanking us. We were taking money off them every month. I thought they'd just want to punch our heads in. But they would come in and they would thank us and say, this thing's changed my life. I had no way of stopping drinking, and this has stopped me. Now I can tell my mates, no, I can't. They had so much problem with peer group pressure that they just couldn't say no. So, so it was a really, really, really interesting business to be a part of.
Any other questions? All right. Well, John, terrific, mate. It's great to hear someone's story, and yours is a very interesting and different story. And I think it's got a long way to go yet.
Yeah,
a long way to go yet. We might get you back another time, and you can tell us what the latest development is. But
I'll have better pictures there.
so we've got something for you. So
I've got a conversion.
Sorry?
Put your foot down.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that. I recently took it to Geelong Revival because my Mini's got the motor out at the moment and I'm fixing it. And so I'm very fortunate in life that I had the Corvette in the garage, and I said to my brother, I said, well, stuff it, I might just take the Corvette. And so the Geelong Revival, do you know what the Geelong Revival is? It's a 400 metre sprint, so quarter mile sprint up the Geelong foreshore. They run it every year, and they have been running it since what year, Mum? Didn't you go there in 1950? Yeah, so it's been going a long time. And it's a free event. Even if you don't like cars, there's a lot of other stuff there. It's a really good event. Anyway, I got to fang the Corvette up there 8 times that weekend. That was magnificent.
this is something that for the interlocking device.
Guzzle it on the way home.
Good on you, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we just about finished, I think. Bear in mind, next month is the AGM, and the agenda, minutes, etc., have all gone out with the newsletter. So we'll do our normal meeting first, which won't take long, and then we'll move to the AGM. We don't have a members' corner, but we're going to hear from Di Latsberg, who's going to speak to us following on a shorter presentation that she gave earlier on. So we're really looking forward to hearing from Di about her work and involvement as part of the AGM. I don't think there's anything else to mention in relation to the AGM. The usual, we know what the usual things are, and those staying for lunch, it shouldn't be too far off. Thanks for coming this morning, and again, John, great to hear from you, mate. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.